Good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. As always, I will tell you who's coming up on this show here in just a couple of minutes. But first, let me thank you for joining me on this edition of if I said Wednesday Night Live, it's actually Behind the Mic here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Greg Plowman, my friend, how are you? I just talked to Craig about a half hour ago here in the parking lot. Sean, good morning. And Craig, thank you for donating. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mike Knife, African Safari, Illinois Bow Hunt. Sean Hodges, thank you for donating a trip for our Trinity Monitor event. Appreciate that so much. Cliff, good morning. How are you? Robert, good morning. Tim, Uncle Johnny, are you guys on the road yet, Johnny? Or are you heading out shortly? Have a good trip, a safe trip. I would say enjoy your time in Grand Rapids, but... And actually, I think Deb said you'll be back in town by what, 3 o'clock? So I suspect it's a quick over and back trip. The weather. As I was standing out there in the parking lot talking to Craig, it was cold. I froze my bald head. I should have grabbed my truck or my hat out of the truck, but I didn't. But we're supposed to get a break. Next week actually doesn't look too bad. I was thinking that, last year at this time, we were out in the open water of Saginaw Bay. The Saginaw River was wide open. It felt like springtime. Doesn't feel like springtime right now, does it? Robert checking in from the Eastern UP. How are things in the Eastern UP? Boy, it's going to be the UP deer are going to have a rough season now, aren't they? Because we got a lot of snow and it's getting to be late in the year. So it's not the earlier part of the summer that really... Winter. I need some more coffee. It's not the early part of the winter. It's the late part of the winter that affects the deer herd. Tommy, good morning. Robert said it's freaking cold. It is freaking cold. Jerry checking in from Algonac. Dave, always a pleasure, buddy. How are you? Dave, you reminded me that we set our next Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack for April 23rd. We open up the reservations on March 3rd. Mad Jack, good morning. How are you? Mad Jack watching us over on YouTube. John, good morning. I was wondering what you were saying you froze until all the words came out. I froze my off. Yeah, it's cold. But not for much longer, right? We're going to get a little break next week. I didn't check the forecast out far enough to see how far the thaw was coming. Randy, good morning. I'm literally chilling out this morning. Randy, good morning. How are you? 3 degrees in the Eastern UP right now. It was 6 degrees when I got up this morning down here mid-Michigan. I'm distracted because I'm watching texts between my wife and my daughter about my grandson, Bodie. Bodie's going through a little phase right now. I don't know if it's just developmental phase because he's almost 5 months old now. But he's got a, I don't know, he's got a cold or an ear infection or something. He's just not sleeping right. And he's just not comfortable right now. Less than 30 days till spring, but it doesn't feel like spring, does it? Although, I did get a picture of a dead skunk in the road from Emil Rousseau of the Lumberjack. And I was thinking, boy, it's awful early for a dead skunk in the road. It's not. It's not early. This is the time when we see dead skunks in the road. Normally, the past few years, though, this time of year when we see those dead skunks, it'd be like, okay, it's warmer. It feels like springtime. Doesn't feel like springtime just yet. So, you know, it's kind of a good old-fashioned winter, and I'm not used to seeing a good old-fashioned winter, so my time clock is a little bit screwed up. Don't be hanging out there in the background. You got to come in here, Art. I see him coming around the corner here. I can just see his silhouette because we got the studio dark except for the lights. I know who it is. It is this man right here. Art
Hello,
Lewis
world.
of WSGW, member of the Michigan Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and our honorary guest, our guest of honor at our Trinity event coming up here in a week and a half.
Yay!
Of
Can't wait.
course, Art's going to win all the guns.
I'm going to try.
Try.
Means
What
it's
else
gonna
is
cost
going
me.
on in your world, Art? You ready for spring too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. March looks like we'll hit 40s a couple of days early on, so
Excellent.
can't wait.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
So we'll look forward to seeing you at the event, and folks can hear you on WSGW AM and FM.
you betcha.
All right,
Talk to
Arthur,
ya.
have a good day, buddy.
You too.
Eli said, see, Tim says next week the weather near 40 degrees. Yes. Carol, good morning. Billy, how are you? Jim, always a pleasure. Eli said he's seen dead skunks as well. You know, I always say, in my mind, a dead skunk in the road is the first sign spring is just around the corner. Well, we're getting dead skunks, but I'm not sure spring is just around the corner. I always say, in my world, it's the red-winged blackbirds returning to the pond behind the house. That, to me, is the one that puts me over the top. I don't put any stock in robins at all. We had a flock of robins come into the yard last week, just before the big storms. I'm thinking, look at robins. You guys were kind of crazy. You should have waited a couple weeks to come back, that's for sure. Hey, Mark, good morning. How are you? Mark says, after the weekend I spent on the ice in Cadillac, spring feels a bit further away. It does. You know, we're used to seeing dead skunks in the road this time of year, and I always say, oh, that's the first sign of spring. Spring's coming up soon. Or at least it's just around the corner. I don't feel that way this year. I don't feel like spring is just around the corner. I feel like spring is a ways off this year. She's going to do what she wants to do, and Mike Critchfield down in Arizona could care less. Randy, anyway, Mike, good morning, buddy. Randy, good morning. Jim, how are you? Jerry, good morning again. Dave says, we will see spring in late April. Captain Doug Ward, good morning, buddy. Doug donated a salmon fishing trip for 4 anglers on Lake Michigan. It will be part of our live auction at the Trinity event. Captain Jason Graham donated a walleye trip on Saginaw Bay. It will be part of our live auction. I am doing a walleye trip on Saginaw Bay as part of the live auction. I donated a walleye trip to Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Craig bought it. I laugh because Craig always buys them, or one of Craig's friends. Craig doesn't have to buy trips to go fishing with me, but he does it to be a good guy and support the event that he's at. In that case, it was a Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Why is Google asking me to see? Okay. Morning, Bill. Wicked Michigan fisherman. Good morning. Eli said usually about a month from now he starts putting the docks out. Jim, good morning. Marco, spring will arrive on June 21st. We doing? We skipping a season this year, Marco? Wrong input, John. Matt, good morning. Dave says skunk mating season is February and March. Don't know why I know that. Love ice fishing. Caught a 10-pound pike about 35 inches. Consistent good weather shows up when the sun finally gets just north of the east-west in our area. Yeah, I personally have been spoiled by mild winter the past few years, so I'm looking at it from a different frame of reference. Like, for example, going back to skunks again. Boy, when I see skunks, spring is just around the corner. We're going to see skunks this time of year regardless. Good morning, George. Hey, Jay, how are you? We'll see spring like I remember as a kid sometime in April. We've just been spoiled. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. We've been spoiled. Doug says, I hear you're coming. I heard you were coming fishing with you, Mike. Craig Plowman. Coming fishing. Yeah, Craig Plowman. Craig's always fun to have on the boat because the guy's just a great guy. Jay, good morning. How are you? Okay, a couple of things to talk about. The weather, which has been bitterly cold, although it looks like we're going to get some breaks in the temperatures next week. How long it's going to last, I don't know. Only Mother Nature and God know. Did see a dead skunk. I saw a flock of robins. Have not seen any red-winged blackbirds. It's way too old. Red-winged blackbirds don't come back yet. It's too early. UP deer herd with this late snowstorms, good old-fashioned Michigan winter. UP deer herd might be feeling the impact this year, that's for sure. Ice fishing, though, look at it. Whether or not you like this cold weather, the ice fishing is pretty good. Well, let me change that. Let me rephrase that. The ice fishing isn't necessarily good. The ice fishing conditions are good. For example, on my beloved Saginaw Bay, the ice is good, strong, safe. But the ice fishing the past week or so, actually, I think it's been a couple of weeks. My son James has been out with his buddy Mike Smith of Offshore Account. So that's my kind of ear to the fishing on the bay, plus the posts I see online. I think the last time that they really had good fishing was the night that I was out with them a couple of weeks ago now, 2.5 weeks ago now. It's been a little slow ever since then. Jim, building some slammer today. Silverfish warms up the end of the week. Silverfish, time to chase silverfish. Good luck to you, Jim. Luke, good morning. 1.5 where you are. Are you on the bay right now? 1.5, I believe that. Northern low will be affected too. I think you're probably right, Tim. The only deer that won't care are the deer in southern Michigan, down here in farm country. They don't care. No, you're not on the ice right now. Why not? Small lake in Michigan. Okay. My son James was out Monday. Oh my gosh, it was cold. Hey, there he is right there. Mike Smith of Offshore Account. He says, yeah, it's been tough fishing, but we definitely catch more in the shanty than we do on the couch. And that's a good point. I don't care if it's hunting or fishing or what it is. You can't go by the reports. You can't go by, you should have been out here because you should have been out here. You are always going to catch more fish when you're out there than if you're not. You're always going to see more deer when you're out there than if you're not. Good point, Mike. You got to be out there. Mike says it's been tough fishing, but we catch more in the shanty than we do on the couch. And Mike makes it easy. Jason Graham makes it easy. The guys like that make it easy. I'm not going to buy a sled. I'm not going to buy an insulated shanty. I got a heater. I'm not going to buy all that stuff because I'm not going to be out there enough. However, if I'm going to go out there once a year, twice a year, maybe even 6 times a year, it makes more sense to go with a charter captain, a fishing guide. Same thing in the summertime. You know, You have to be out there a lot to make it worthwhile to buy a boat or a sled or a quad or whatever it is. In the summertime, I am out there enough. I mean, I don't. Okay, I got to deal with Angler Quest, so I don't. I'm not saying I buy a boat, right? But I have bought plenty of boats in the past, and it's just you got to be out there a lot to make it worth your while. If not, take advantage of a charter captain or a fishing guide. It makes complete sense, and you will catch more fish because these guys are out there every day. They know what's going on. Robert's headed out to move his ice shack right now. Good morning, Foster. How are you? However, Tim has a good point. If you do have a couch in your shanty, you're all set up. Dan hasn't caught a fish yet. Had fun through the grandson. He says now he knows where not to go. And you're right. Last time I was out because my son James invited me. It's fun to fish with your family. It's fun to fish with your friends. And when you got a group of fishermen, including charter guys like Mike Smith, I've had a lot of people say, and Jason Graham or whoever it is, they go out fishing with these captains and they end up becoming friends. Jerry says he can't wait to hear Jenny tonight. Where are you that Jenny is speaking tonight? Jenny Olson? Well, she's not Olson anymore. Brent, good morning. Hey, I got your tickets yesterday, Brent. I think best thing, I'll just have them waiting at the door for you and Tracy. And we look forward to seeing you at the Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction for sure. I will be at Calvary Baptist Church in Midland Saturday. Next Saturday, of course, is our Trinity event. And then the following Saturday, I will be at, thank you, John, I will be at the MUCC's convention Saturday night and Sunday morning at Treetops. He did tell me about that, Mike. He did. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. I don't know, John. That's a good question. Friday, we're going downstate. My wife Denise and I going downstate to see my grandson Bodie. But we'll see. We'll see how things are going. I might make a run over to Novi Friday for the outdoor Rama. I don't know. I'd like to, but we'll see how things go. Tonight on Wednesday Night Live, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, joins me. Next week on Wednesday Night Live, we kick off our silent auction for the Trinity Monitor event with Deidre Hurley. She will be on Wednesday Night Live with me to kick off that auction. The live auction, of course, is limited to the folks who are at the event. The silent auction, the online auction, anybody can be a part of that. And believe me, we have some great silent auction items, including a charter captain's class with John Littlefield. Craig Plowman just dropped off a beautiful knife from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Chris Durson is sending down some knives. We've got a truck trolley for the silent auction. Matt Taggett just sent me some broadheads from Rick Broadhead, so those will be part of the live auction. I'm sorry, silent auction. James said he snuck down a trolling spoon, and he said the action was a little different. He didn't have the weight, right, of a jigging spoon. He said it was a more subtle presentation. He had a harder time feeling the bottom with it, but it seemed to work. You are more than welcome, Brent. Amy, thank you. I'm thinking Jenny. Amy Trotter of MUCC, Executive Director of MUCC, will be on with me tonight on Wednesday Night Live. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that. Let me tell you who's coming up on the show this week. Matt Schock, Coyote Matt Schock, will be my first guest. Then a new member of the Michigan Wildlife Council, Dan Ulfig, in hour number 2. We're talking a little late time late time, late winter ice fishing and early spring steelheading with Ryan Russ of River Rat Guide Service. Justin Tomei of MUCC will be along with me to talk about having a bait license. I don't think it's going to happen. And then in our third hour, Mark Romanak of Fishing 411, and of course, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. Hi, okay. Hey, Tim, how are you? Good cold morning to you, but it's going to get warmer. I don't need these yet. I'm not going to well, I will put them on, my official broadcast headphones, just because it makes it look like an official broadcast. All right, my friends, I hope you can join me tonight at 7 o'clock for Wednesday Night Live. 10, 9, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off. That's what I'm hearing. Because I got to go to work. You can't really call it work, right? I get it. I'm not breaking a sweat. Usually. But I will be back tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live, along with Amy Trotter of MUCC. Next week on Wednesday Night Live, Deidre Hurley kicks off our Trinity silent auctions. Tickets are still available, although I hear we're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. But we have them if you want them. Go to my Facebook page. I have the flyer posted there. Also, April 23rd. All right, I got to go to work. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and so glad to have you along with us. How are you? Are you enjoying this good old-fashioned Michigan winter? Michigan winter. As we are in the studio right now, it is cold, and it has been cold, really cold. Although there is a ray of hope as I look at the weather forecast, maybe the weekend we're going to get a little bit of a break early next week. The week coming up looks like it's going to be a little bit of a break. Won't that be nice? I'm ready. I think most people are ready. But we've been spoiled. We've had some mild winters. Now we have a closer to a good old-fashioned Michigan winter. I've been spoiled the last few years in my perspective on things. For example, I personally have not seen a dead skunk yet. I always say one of the true signs of spring being just around the corner here in Michigan, in my part of the state, is a dead skunk in the middle of the road. I haven't seen one yet, but my buddy Emil Rousseau sent me a picture of a dead skunk in the middle of the road last weekend by Rose City, West Branch area. I thought, man, it's early. And I posted it. Said, it's early. And people said, it's really not. This is the time of the year when we generally start to see dead skunks in the middle of the road. It's just that in past years, when we would see those dead skunks, it would be just a little bit warmer with a promise of it being warmer still. So it is coming. It's not here yet. I saw a flock of robins in the yard last week just before the big storm came in. I thought, you guys are crazy. You should have waited a week. The UP deer herd. I think it's going to be an interesting year for those critters, maybe even the northern lower as well. Because in the UP, it's really not the winter that we get early on or midwinter. It's the late winter that really starts to take its toll. This year might be one of those years, so that's something to keep an eye on. Ice fishing, ice conditions across the state continue to be excellent. I almost said ice fishing across the state is excellent. Ice fishing conditions are excellent. The fishing, now that's a whole different thing, right? I was thinking last year at this time, we were out on the open water of Saginaw Bay. I was out with Captain Mark Pananzak trolling my beloved Skinny Water last year this time of year. Nobody's out there trolling this year. We ran up in the river to jig for some walleye. Now they're jigging walleye, but they're jigging through the ice. You got to take what Mother Nature gives you, right? And this year, she's given us winter, which is actually, it's great, right? It's great for the businesses that rely on wintertime, and there are a lot of them. Let's see, what's coming up? We've got the Outdoor Rama is going on at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi this weekend. I might try to sneak over there one day. Our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction coming up next week. How is that possible that it's next week already? Are we ready? Am I ready? We better be. We still have some tickets available. I don't know if we're going to sell out or not, but it's going to be close. Would love to see you there. The best way to get those tickets, I think, is to go to my, well, there are several ways, but I'm just going to send you to my Facebook page because on the Facebook page, I have pinned to the top of the page a flyer for that event. And man, we have some great, great live auction items, some great silent auctions items. Next week on Wednesday Night Live, Deidre Hurley will join me to kick off the silent auction. You don't have to be at the event to enjoy the silent auction. But of course, you've got to be at the event to enjoy the live auction. Some great, great items. And then that following weekend, I will be at the MUCC annual convention at Treetops near Gaylord. I wasn't really planning on being at the event, but something came up that made it worth my while to be at the event. So I will be there. I did do the online survey for MUCC members of the different items coming up. And that's the thing I like about MUCC is as a member, I actually have a say. Now, I was up there a few years ago pushing for something that I believe very strongly in. It didn't, and that's the elimination of the rod restrictions for Great Lake trolling anglers. That's a different topic, but my point is, if you have something you're pushing for, you can bring it to MUCC, and if it has merit and gets supported by the membership there at the convention, MUCC will jump behind it and they will support it. Things have happened because of one single person who had an idea, who was willing to push it. And in the rod restriction thing, I didn't have the argument framed correctly yet as far as MUCC because I hadn't been there before. I believe that's still going to happen. As I told you last week, I think it's time to really take a look at a lot of our hunting and fishing laws. Maybe simplify them. Maybe get rid of some of the extraneous stuff. All that really matters, right, is that we protect the resource. That's what we need to be concerned about, protecting the resource and protecting the people who are out there enjoying it. Beyond that, everything else is just extraneous. Everything else is just stuff to keep game wardens busy. And they got enough to keep themselves busy. But we'll see. We have finally set a date. I say finally because I was kind of waiting to see how things were going to shake out. Our next Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch will be the Wednesday after Easter, which is April 23rd. Now, I'm telling you about it now because we're going to open up reservations Wednesday, March 3rd, I think it is. Maybe March 5th, whatever that first Wednesday in I think it's the 5th, the first Wednesday in March. So that's coming up. Looking at my list here. Oh, my website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I do want to hear from you. And I've been hearing from a lot of people lately with some really good suggestions, some really good questions. Many of those will make their way to our Ask Avery segment or topics here in the show. Sometimes I can address those directly. Sometimes I can get an answer immediately. But some of the questions I've had recently are going to take a little while to figure out and to get to the right people. But they're excellent questions. Like, why, if we can't do something some way in some part of the state as hunters, why are they allowed to break those rules? For example, downstate or in the northern part of the state for deer harvest, for deer culls. Those are great questions. I don't have the answer to those right away. It's going to take me a while to get to the right people. But I do want to get your suggestions, your recommendations, the things you like about the show, the things you don't like. Send me an email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's the best way to get in touch with me. Not a social media message. I will get many of those, but send me a good old-fashioned email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Coming up on this week's show after the break, Matt Schock, Coyote Matt Schock, will join me to talk about late winter predator hunting, coyote hunting. Matt was very generous and offered a predator hunting trip for our big Trinity Monitor wild game dinner and auction. It's always a popular auction item. He will be with me to talk about that. Then Dan Alpig, the newest member of the Michigan Wildlife Council, to talk about the Here for Generations campaign. In our second hour, more late season winter action, this time ice fishing, and early season steelhead fishing with Captain Ryan Russ of River Rat Guide Service. Then Justin Tomei from MUCC. Justin joins me to talk about this trial balloon, or is it for real, concept being floated out there of having a bait license for lower Michigan, lower peninsula elk and whitetail hunters. I don't know. And in our third hour, Mark Romanak from Fishing 411 talks about what's going on in his world. And, of course, then wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. Lots coming up this week. I'm glad you're with us. Stick around after the break. Matt Schock coming up. Okay, so we're moving on here. The radio show is on autopilot. I can come back to you for a couple of minutes. Rick, good morning. How are you? Brian, good morning. Butch, Michael, Robert. Okay, Brian asked an interesting question. Any chance of getting Frank Ragnow on the show? I am trying so very hard to get Frank Ragnow on the show. I don't know Frank. I have not met him. I don't have a number for him, but I know people who are connected to him, and I have reached out through them to try to get to Frank. I would love to look at my cell phone one day and say incoming call or incoming text from Frank Ragnow. I want him on the show very badly, so I'm working on it. But tonight, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, joins me. And then next week, Deidre Hurley from Trinity to kick off the whole celebration of the big Trinity Monitor event. All right, my friends, I'm going to go. I'm going to let you get on with the day. I was going to say move on to our next segment. Here's some little inside baseball. Those two segments with Matt Schock are already done. I recorded them yesterday. But you don't know that. And the radio listeners don't know that. Well, you do know it. Anyway, my friends, have a great day. I will see you tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live, where we'll be joined by Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC. In the meantime, have a great day. Try to stay warm.